Hi, and welcome to What's Up Williston, the town's monthly TV show where we take a closer look at things going on in our community. I'm your host, Erik Wells. This is our first episode of our second season of the television show here. So kicking it off, I'd like to introduce our first guest here, Chapin Kaynor. Chapin wears many hats in the town. He's our commissioner on the Green Mountain Transit Board, the new chair of the Planning Commission as of July 1st, and he's also a member of the town band. Chapin, today I thought we'd kind of dig into Green Mountain Transit a bit and the work you and the board have been doing and the operations there in the last couple of years. I know there's a lot of changes and updates to make and get through, and some education we can give folks as well here.
Yes. Hello, Erik. Glad to be here. Green Mountain Transit used to be CCTA, Chittenden County Transportation Authority. It was formed in the 70s. And then there was a rural transit agency for Franklin, Grand Isle, Lamoille, and Washington counties called GMTA. And those two combined in 2011, I think. But we didn't rebrand to a single name until 2017. And so Green Mountain Transit, GMT, is really all of northwestern Vermont's public transit agency.
And Chapin, we were talking before the show, and I wonder if you could share with viewers kind of how long you've been involved and what got you interested in serving in this role.
I have always ride-shared and taken buses, and so when bus service came to Williston Village, where I live, I started taking the bus to work. I worked at Vermont Student Assistance Corporation in Winooski, so I had to make one transfer to get there, but I rode the bus for the last 4 years before I retired. And that's a service that actually we just lost with recent changes designed to save money and improve efficiency. So I was a passenger for many years, and when I retired, I was appointed by our select board to represent Williston on the Green Mountain Transit Board of Commissioners, and that was in 2014. So I'm coming up on 5 years of being on that board, and I have served as vice chair, as chair, and currently I'm secretary.
Kind of off that, as we're getting started here, you spoke decision to use the bus for commuting purposes. What kind of led you there to?
Well, I think it's sort of a sense of social responsibility, sort of to be a caretaker for the planet, that you do what's efficient. And one of the things I've noticed is that on many of our bus lines, it's people who came from big cities or from other countries who often are the most avid riders of the bus because they're used to it in their culture. And so one of the things as an advocate for public transportation I think about often is how do we make it be part of our culture to ride the bus more. And some of the programs that Green Mountain Transit has sponsored, I think, help with that. There's a bus buddy program where if you're unfamiliar with the bus and a little bit worried about how to use it the first time, you can get assigned a buddy to ride with you once or twice. That's something that Green Mountain Transit offers. And another is there's a summer program, so we're at the wrong time to advertise this, but there's a wristband for, I think it's $25 for students of high school age. And you buy that wristband, they wear it, and they can ride the bus anywhere all summer. And I think having our youth ride the bus more is a good way to make it one of the options they consider. And millennials actually gravitate a little more towards public transportation as well as towards Uber and biking than some of people from my generation do.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of options and programs, and to get people just making that first step to try it out. You know, it's just, you got to start.
Yes, I would say try it out. That's my message to the public.
Well, I thought there's a lot of things we can dig into here, and I thought we could start with changes to routes. This has been a couple-year project in the works, big study. I think people will notice the shift from numbers to colors for the lines. There's a lot more to it than that, so I dig in there wherever you want to get started here. Explain this piece of it.
Let me just explain that the routes that Green Mountain Transit follows in the what we call the urban area, which is Chittenden County, what used to be CCTA, those routes have not changed in years and years and years. There's been slight alterations, but it's the same basic routes. And there's some inefficiencies to that. And of course, growth centers have come up like Taft Corners and have more need. And so in the last 2 years, Green Mountain Transit undertook a large study as though you were designing from the ground up what are the transit needs and what would you do. And the results are in 3 phases, just minor tweaks, how to make it much more efficient, and then maybe what we might want to add in the future. And we are focusing right now on what makes it more efficient. And there are several things that happened about that. One is that we have interlined routes, which means that more than one route is now combined. So the bus you get on maybe at Walmart or Taft Corners to go into Burlington continues on out North Avenue in Burlington.
Okay, I see.
And so that the one in North Avenue used to be the number 7, and the one to Williston used to be number 1. Now it's just the red line, and it goes all the way through. So those passengers who are going all the way through, or who maybe were getting on at Northgate at the north end of North Avenue and coming all the way to Williston, they don't have to transfer at the Downtown Transit Center. And so it makes things a little bit more efficient. The operators are running a route all the way end to end. And so that creates an efficiency, and also it reduced the number of routes to where we could color code them. So now the main route for Williston is just called the Red Line. There is a second route that serves Williston, which runs to Essex Junction, used to be the number 10, and it's now the Orange Line, and it extends up to the Lang Farm Shopping Center. So that was one change, was to reduce the number of routes by interlining them and change to colors so it's easier for people to find their route. People found it confusing that the number 1 bus ran on Route 2 and the number 2 bus ran on Route 15. So now it's just the Red Line to Williston. The second big change is to make the schedule more regular and more frequent on the main routes, so that you don't need to look up in the schedule, oh, what exact time is it coming to me this particular time of day. So right now the Red Line, for instance, runs 20-minute service from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day. If you know what time it comes at 6, you know what time it comes at 10, you know, wherever your bus stop is on that hour of, so 3 times an hour, every 20 minutes, and you don't need to take your schedule. From 6 to 9 p.m., it runs a 30-minute schedule, and then from 9 until it stops running at about 11:30. It's a 1 hour. Actually, it's a 1 hour schedule. The very end. On Sundays, it's a 45-minute schedule. So there are differences by the day of the week or the time, but if you're using it from 6 to 6, it's always every 20 minutes. And that simplification sometimes is less efficient because we're running more service than we need for the number of passengers. But it means that it's much more easy for people to know the schedule and find the bus and ride it.
I feel like that'll go a long way for users.
It does.
Regularity.
It does. And while we're talking about that regularity of schedule, the bus to Essex used to run hourly. It still runs hourly. And so once an hour, if you know what time that is, you can take it to Essex all the way up to the Lang Farm now. And once an hour, it comes the other way. So that's true from 7 to 7. There was a third change, which is we did a fare increase. Fares had not been increased since 2005. And so the single ride fare has gone from $1.25 up to $1.50 now. And these changes happened the 3rd week in June.
Okay. Yep.
So it's now $1.50, and there's no change offered on the bus, so you have to have exact change. There is a new app that is going to be advertised soon, on which you can purchase single rides, and then you show the result on your phone to the driver, and that way, if you don't have exact change, you can use it. It's like using a debit card. But I would want to make sure people know that for $40, you can buy an all-access monthly pass and ride anywhere within Chittenden County on that monthly pass for $40. And so if you're a frequent rider, you can save a lot of money if you buy a monthly pass. There also are 10 ride passes, but they are not at a discount.
Okay. No, it sounds like all this work, this analysis, this is a heavy lift. There's a lot that went into
Yes.
this. Can you let the viewers just get an idea of how the studies go? How did the board arrive at these conclusions?
So we did hire a company that specializes in this to do it. And they held very many public meetings. They massaged through all sorts of data. The Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, CCRPC, has lots of data about where people work and where they live. And so there's actually an ability to do a lot of analysis without surveying people. But we surveyed people both who ride the bus and who don't. And we had multiple public meetings and analysis by this company. And this analysis went through many phases. And we are not actually through with it in that we have not yet implemented the recommendations for the rural areas. Okay. So in Franklin County and Lamoille County and Washington County, we have not yet implemented the changes that we just implemented for Chittenden County. And there are recommendations in there for future service expansion. But we are right now at a financial time where we are not able to expand service. We are basically trying to make the service we already offer more efficient. And part of that was a slight trimming, very small amount of trimming of routes, which unfortunately included the 1V, the village run from Williston that ran 5 times a day from the village of Williston into Burlington. That route unfortunately has gone away.
And with that aspect, they were looking at ridership numbers and quantities.
Yes, it just, we couldn't justify it based on the number of riders. It basically was being subsidized, and we are in a financial time that we can't afford that. I personally think that there's a need for transportation, and when I knew this might happen for a year, and I put an article in the Williston Observer a year ago, and I've gotten a lot of response, and I've talked to a lot of people, and from that I learned that there's a great need for transportation between Taft Corners and the village center in Williston. If you live in Taft Corners area and you want to go to the town hall to get a dog license or to the library, there's no service that goes back and forth between Williston and Taft Corners. Or if you live at Whitney Hill or anywhere near the village and you would like to use public transportation to go shopping at Taft Corners area, there's no service for that. And that seemed to me to be a larger unmet need than the met need of getting people who wanted to commute sort of morning and evening to Burlington. And so I'm working with our planning director, Matt Boulanger, on that because I feel like there is an opportunity to provide something that Green Mountain Transit, which is in Chittenden County pretty much doing urban transit. We're talking about 30 to 40 foot long buses for our fixed route service. And I feel as though we need a smaller vehicle type with a more flexible schedule to serve parts of Williston that aren't being served.
As we look at these policy options to consider based on the needs out there, and just press for viewers, these are ideas that we're exploring at different levels of town government right now. But just give them an idea, what are some iterations you've seen in other communities around the country that have this issue? What are some things the town can explore to see if it makes sense for Williston?
Yes, that's a very good point. One of the interesting things I'll start with is that when you have smaller buses, you don't actually save that much money because your labor costs and all the overhead is the same, and the smaller buses don't have as long a life. And so the difference of the operating costs you save is only 10 to 15% by going to, say, a 20-passenger bus instead of a 40-foot bus. But some of the more promising things are more on-demand service. Our culture has gotten used to, for instance, using Uber. Taxi, you would call on the phone and schedule a taxi. Now with Uber, with an app on your phone, you may do it, and it may be much quicker and less expensive. And the same idea exists for bus transportation. So locally, there's been a study going on in Montpelier, jointly by VTrans, the Vermont Transit Agency, Green Mountain Transit, and the Washington County Regional Planning Commission, and the city of Montpelier. And they are studying and getting bids on doing what's called microtransit, which is basically schedulable, on-demand public bus service with smaller vehicles. And so I think that that's one of the things to look for in the future.
So I know looking at something like that is working with these partner organizations and trying to figure out there's the capital cost for the equipment, there's the administrative costs, and figure out how those pieces work, it seems like.
Exactly. And I think that we So if I can just back up for a second, Green Mountain Transit has ended the 1V and has increased service and on the other routes. That essentially means that the western half of Williston is served pretty well with urban transit, and that there's nothing in the eastern half, including the village. It's my personal feeling that Green Mountain Transit isn't in a good position to offer that service because it's so in between size-wise. It's sort of semi-rural. And so that's why I'm looking at exploring with our town planning office other options. So I just want to be really clear. In my role as Green Mountain Transit Commissioner, I'm making sure we do all we can, but I think there's a need that is going to need some municipal participation, and that does require sorting a lot of things out. Our planner, Matt Boulanger, has written up a proposal for a study of what he calls mode shift, which is people going from walking to biking to riding to car sharing, carpooling, or taking public transit, and sort of surveying what are the facilities and what are the needs within our community. And an interesting thing that our viewers might not know is that when the Regional Planning Commission has studied where in Chittenden County there should be park and ride facilities, number one was at exit 12, and that's been delayed and delayed and delayed.
Yeah.
And that's really for riding on the transit on the interstate. Number two in Chittenden County is at Taft Corners, just less than a mile away from the number one need.
Wow.
And so the Regional Planning Commission identified years ago that we really need 2 park and ride facilities within a mile of each other in Williston to meet the need. And one thing to emphasize about this, when you have that kind of facility, it reduces the number of cars on the road. Whether people are ride sharing or getting on a bus, it reduces the cars, which reduces the congestion. It makes everybody who is driving a car go faster, more efficiently, reduces carbon in the atmosphere, and it reduces the need to upgrade intersections. So it actually saves costs for everybody. So an investment in a ride sharing or a mode shift facility is actually an investment that benefits the whole community, not just the people who might be using it.
Are there any other kind of examples of a mode shift facility and you can think of in Chittenden County right now, or is it this kind of a newer concept to explore?
Well, it's a more general term. What's happened is in Burlington and South Burlington and Winooski, there are now bike share services and car share services where you pay a membership or you pay on the fly, and the bike share has gone electric this year, which is extends the amount of distance someone can travel in a rented bicycle. And these are where you just pick up the bike. It's sitting there at wherever is typically a mode shift place, like near a bus station or something else.
Okay. Well, these are really interesting concepts to explore. And as you said, so many pieces of the town plan and growth are all tied to this. And
they are.
you get to look at a couple different lenses at it on the Planning Commission and as the GMT Commissioner.
This is true. It might be a good time to bring up that there's another whole area of need, which is people with disabilities or elderly and disabled. And as you know, our buses make every effort to accommodate, and they all have lifts for wheelchairs and tie-downs for wheelchairs and so forth. But if you live within 3/4 of a mile of a transit bus stop, you are eligible to get customized services if you need them. And Green Mountain Transit subcontracts with SSTA. I think it stands for Social Service Transportation Agency, which is for Chittenden County Transportation. In the other counties that Green Mountain Transit serves, Franklin County, Lamoille, and Washington County, Green Mountain Transit offers those services directly. We don't subcontract. But they are actually funded by several different sources, from Medicaid to the ADA funding I mentioned, to the Elderly and Disabled Grant Program, which is a state-funded program. And so you combine those programs and offer a service that's a little bit parallel, but is more customized. However, for those services, you have to qualify, you have to schedule a day in advance, and so forth and so on. So one of the things I wonder about with microtransit is, could we combine general public and special needs public in it and get an additional efficiency? And that's part of what needs to be explored.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces to explore in this and attributes that go into it. I'll add for viewers for on SSTA, I've done some work with that program, and if folks are interested in more information and how to utilize the services, please give us a call at the town hall and we can explain more about the program and what's available for services for residents in town.
And can I add one other thing back to when I mentioned that you can save money with a $40 monthly pass to ride anywhere in Chittenden County? If you are over 60 or disabled, or a student, there are reduced fees for both the regular one admission fare and also for the monthly passes.
If someone wants to buy one of those, should they go online, or can they buy them at a retail outlet somewhere?
The reduced passes you have to buy through either the Downtown Transit Center or the main office, although I think you can do it through the phone.
Okay.
Check on that. For the regular passes, you can do it online.
Okay.
And they mail them to you. The reason on the reduced is you need to show kind of proof that you are a certain age or disabled, and so you have to do it in person.
Qualification. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple more things we want to touch base on here, Chapin. You have alluded to before the finance structure for Green Mountain Transit, and folks, you can give a broad overview of kind of how the funding is structured and kind of where the fare piece plays into that larger pie for the funding.
Yes. So as you might guess, the fares don't support the service. The fares are about 15% of the revenue. Another 15 to 20% comes from local contributions, which is the towns that are served within Chittenden County in their budgets include an allocation to provide the service because, as I've mentioned, it's a benefit to the entire town. State money is significant, and the federal money is the largest single piece. So our budget is made up of federal allocations and grants, state allocations and grants, local participation, and fares. And then there's even one more category, which is advertising. If you see a bus that's wrapped with advertising or has posters on it, that's helping to fund the service.
A lot of different revenue streams to look at there. And I know we talked before the show, and at the board level it's come up before, the concept of fare-free services, and kind of what are the maybe pros and cons for looking at this. And it's not something that's being explored right now, but it's a conversation that's been held before.
Yes, and part of the comprehensive system analysis that we just completed that resulted in the changes we were talking about was to look at fares. And in the fare analysis, they looked at everything from fare-free up to doubling the fare. And there's something called fare elasticity, which is if you change it up or down, how much ridership do you gain or lose? Like you can raise the price and still not lose people. How much can you stretch it? So if we went fare-free, we should see a significant increase, somewhere between 10 and 20% at least. If we raised our fares more than we did, we would have seen a drop. The amount we raised them along with we actually took a cut in price for the monthly pass because that's efficient for everybody not to have to collect the fare every time. We don't expect to see any loss from the change that we made. So specifically about fare-free, it really encourages ridership and increases on-time performance because when you're not collecting fares, there's not this delay as people look in their purse or try to drop their change in, and the operator can open the back door and let people load from front and back. And so it really is more efficient, and then we don't need to have people maintaining the fare boxes. We don't have to purchase the fare boxes. We don't have to count the money and deposit it. And so there actually is a significant savings. So fare-free isn't a loss of all of that revenue because some of it's offset by a savings. But we couldn't afford in our situation to take the hit it would take to go fare-free. Some of the issues for fare-free, in larger cities where they do that, they wind up with some problems with people, especially in cold or very hot weather, staying on the bus just to be in a warmer temperature or a colder temperature because there's no charge for being on it. However, in college towns or semi-suburban areas, it's usually been quite successful. And we are in that band of of where it might be successful. And people may be familiar with the fact it's free to ride the College Street shuttle in Burlington. Now, I say free. What happens is the fares are counted in Burlington City. The city of Burlington pays a annual fee to replace what the fares would have been.
I see.
So it's not just a gratis service, but it's paid for a different way. And in fact, that's what would happen if we went fare-free in Chittenden County. That 15% of our budget that's made up by fares, we may not have to make up all of it because we'll see some efficiencies, but that budget has to be made up another way, whether it's additional local contributions or some new stream of revenue. But it's to me, it's definitely something to look at long run. And the reason I say that is we have this cultural barrier to riding the bus. And if we went from having something like 2% of people in the county riding the bus to having, say, 10%, we would not need to upgrade our roads. We would not have as much congestion. It would benefit everybody. Mm-hmm. And we have, if the buses go electric, we're already, when you get multiple people on a bus, reducing the carbon footprint for those people, but potentially it could help in that regard too. Mm.
On your last point, the electric busing.
Yes.
I know coming this fall we're going to have our first electric buses. And you can share some more about that.
Well, it's been a long time coming, and the reason that it's slow is that the initial price for an electric bus is high. We could buy 2 diesel buses for the price of 1 electric bus, and most of the difference is the batteries. So we have grants in order to be able to do this, and it's a joint effort with Burlington Electric because it'll be charged on Burlington Electric at the Home Depot. VEIC, the Vermont Energy Investment Corp, which is going to monitor and try to find ways to make sure we're as efficient as possible and look out for the future, and Green Mountain Transit. Those buses have been on order now for almost a year, and they're expected to arrive in September. They may not be in service until October because there's some amount of driver training and all that. Sure. But they basically, with an electric bus, we'll be charging on Burlington Electric electricity, which is 100% renewable, which means that those buses will have no carbon footprint for their fuel to operate. And to me, that's very exciting. And as the driver in an electric car, I can just say, the ride is smoother, less vibration, more acceleration, and generally more comfortable. And so I think people will love the electric buses. I am hoping we get more, but the price needs to come down. Yeah. And one of the things I'm pushing, and I have been unsuccessful so far, is for Burlington Electric or Green Mountain Power to actually buy the batteries. Because if the power company bought the batteries, when we bought the buses, there wouldn't be an additional cost. Sure. And they could lease the batteries back, and what we're saving in operational costs, because electricity is less expensive than fossil fuels to run the buses, and the maintenance is less. There's no exhaust system, there's no points and ignition system and so forth. So the operational costs of electric are less. Over the life of the bus, the lifetime of the bus, you get back those costs. So paying a lease on the batteries back to the power companies would keep our costs no different from being a diesel bus. And I'm hoping that someday that's the way it goes, or else that the batteries get inexpensive enough that we can electrify, because I see that as being important.
Well, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things happening, and all the work you and your fellow commissioners have done, and electrifying the fleet, that start. There's a lot to be excited about.
And those 2 buses are out of about 60 urban buses. So it's just it's a start. It's about 3% of our fleet.
Yeah. Good start.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's about it. Points I had, Chapin. Is there anything else you wanted to add today for viewers?
I can't remember. No, I don't think so. I think the important thing for our viewers is that public transit is a service that we are lucky to have, even though we're semi-rural in Williston. And so take a look at it and use it if you can. And I'm always open for more ideas, and so people can email me. You'll probably put up my email address later.
Yeah, we'll have it on the screen for folks as they watch this.
People are welcome to email me or talk to me about it. what I can do through Green Mountain Transit, I would very much like to advocate for what the town residents would like.
That's great. Yeah, so you're there for folks, and it's a good
Yes.
it's a good way to share what
Yes.
they're thinking, because
Yes,
everyone's in this in the town, and you represent us. So
good.
it's good. Connect people. They see who you are. They haven't met you before, so let Chapin know if you have anything to pass on. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Chapin.
Thank
I
you for
certainly
having me,
learned a
Erik.
lot. And I'm looking forward to trying out the electric buses when they get here. That'll be fun.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
Next this month, let's take a look at some things going on around town in our Community Notebook segment. The first tax payment of the year is due by August 15th. It needs to be either received or postmarked. Bills are mailed in early July. Please contact the town clerk's office with any questions. Get involved and volunteer with the town. We have open positions on town volunteer boards and commissions right now. There's an open position on the Historical and Architectural Advisory Committee, and there'll be 2 positions for a newly forming Catamount Community Forest Committee. You can visit the town website to learn more about applying to volunteer. As everyone's probably seen throughout this summer, the work on Route 2 is almost complete. Repaving and line striping and bicycle lanes that were added. A couple of photos here from out in front of the town offices. This should wrap up in the next week or so completely. We've got a number of recreation programs for all ages coming up. Look for the fall program guide to be out on August 15th. Be an observer and online and available to pick up at town offices. You can visit willistonrec.org for more information and how to sign up. A few programs coming up. There's still some day camps in August. There's technology, sports, and specialty camps in August leading up to when school starts. And there's a 50-plus program. They do strength training in the Federated Church Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10:15 to 11:15 in the morning. You can stop by and sign up and pay at the first class you attend. There's also a lot going on in the library coming up. There's a magic show coming up on Monday, August 5th. There'll be Meet the Vermont Lake Monsters players coming up on Tuesday, August 13th. There'll be kindergarten kickoff and library open house on Monday, August 26th. New kindergarten students and their families are invited to listen to stories, get a library card, and meet new friends. Registration is required for this one. You can give the library a call. And to add to the first point here, the magic show coincides with the summer reading finale. There'll be raffle tickets, must be entered by 8 p.m. on Monday, August 5th to be eligible for the drawings. A reminder, we have our service request portal available. It's a way to request non-emergency services. For example, a pothole, a tree of concern, a planning and zoning issue. And once you put in your request, you'll stay updated from the town regarding the request throughout. If you visit the town website homepage, you'll find this button to click on, and that will lead you to the page where you can submit a request. Always a reminder, the town of Williston's on social media. Give us a follow on Twitter or like us on Facebook to get updates from the town using those 2 methods of communication. We're always looking for feedback and segment ideas for the show, so feel free to give me a call or an email at any time. So that's going to wrap it up here for the first episode of Season 2 of What's Up Williston. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Erik Wells, and I'll see you around town.